Hey, my name is Clay. This is my Horde of Notions deck. Alright, this is my elemental deck. The cards are mostly based around the general being able to return elemental cards from your graveyard to play with the various abilities of the elementals. It's how this deck gets its versatility and really does well. First of all, the land base, a couple of just fetch lands. Then you've got the tri-lands from the Alara block. Mirrodin's Core, just a good versatile land. And you run into all of the panoramas, just being able to fetch basic lands, whatever you need at the time. Terminal Moraine, same thing, just fetching a basic land. I didn't want to have to put a lot of cards in here to fetch lands, which is why I went like this with the mana base. Then the layer lands, some people don't like them. I like them a lot, especially when you get to Gemstone Mine. When Gemstone Mine gets low on counters, you can bounce it with one of the layer lands and then put it back in with the 3 counters again. Then you run into the basic lands, running 4 each of islands, swamps, and mountains. And then my decks are usually a little heavy on green and white, so I run 5 forests and 5 plains. Now into the elemental creatures. Like I said, everything in here is about the versatility of the creatures. So this allows me obviously to put in a lot of 1/1s. The only downside with Vigor is that when he goes to your graveyard, he's shuffled into your library, so unfortunately you can't reanimate him with the Horde of Notions, but other than that, he's fantastic. Forgotten Ancient just makes you get him really big really fast, especially in large multiplayer EDH games. So their moves, this is just about card draw. Like I said, everything in here is pretty versatile with their abilities. So when you get a bunch of them in your graveyard, you have a lot of different options. Shriekmaw, just basically a terror. Morsel Hoarder, just a mana guy. Cinder Elemental, can't really beat this card in this deck. I mean, especially late game, you can sack him, blow up a creature or a player, and then just do it again, bring it back out with Horde of Notions and do it all over again. Ether Snipe just returns target permanents. This guy I haven't used that often, but he pumps up the other elementals, and because you have Horde of Notions out, you can afford to activate his ability and sack a creature because you know you can bring it back out. Revelark, really good, especially when you use it as a vote cost to bring back cards from your graveyard. Fertilid, this guy's really good in this deck because it is 5 color. Sometimes you need his ability to search. I've reanimated this guy several times and thinned out my deck late game so that I'm drawing into spells instead of land. Taurean Mauler, he is a shapeshifter, so technically an elemental, and he gets big as well, just like Forgotten Ancient. Ashling, people absolutely hate this card, and he is quick to die almost all the time. Obviously you want to sit there and build up his counters over time and then wait to resolve it after he's got 10 or 11 counters, but he rarely lasts that long. Thundercloud Elemental is great because you can tap people that have a bunch of tokens, or if you have flying issues you can make all of the creatures lose flying, swing through with this guy for 4. Another changeling in here ends up usually only really getting flying from my graveyard, but with another player's graveyard he gets a lot of great abilities. Muldrifter, just more card draw. It's really fun to keep reanimating this and keep drawing cards, reloading your hand. This is a guy that allows you to search for forests. I only run a few forests in here, but I have reanimated him a few times at the end just to again thin out the deck and get more lands. Air Servant, late game he's great because you can activate his abilities multiple times to tap a lot of creatures. It's really good control. Soulbright Flamekin, this guy is really fun to play because it gives target creature trample. So if one of your opponents is attacking another opponent, you can pay 2 and give one of their creatures trample to trample through more damage, so don't have to just use it on your creatures. Supreme Exemplar, just a 10/10 flyer that's huge. I like to champion any of the Harbinger that allows you to search out an elemental. I'll get to him here in a few. Dreads, just fantastic ability. People are very reluctant to swing on you when you've got this guy out. There's the Flamekin Harbinger, just fetching any elemental card for whatever situation you need. And one of the guys that gets the biggest here is Malamo, especially late game when you've got tons of lands. And the Avenger is great with the tons of lands that I just spoke of. Igneous Pouncer, most of the time I use him for his swamp cycling and mountain cycling ability early on, and then you can reanimate him later with the Horde of Notions. Soul Snuffers, this is just a good control card to use when your opponent's creatures are getting a little too big, or they have a, like a stuffy doll out or something. Shine Wind, absolutely vital to have some enchantment removal in these decks, so he's in there for that. Guy's Revenge, just a big beat stick. Nova Chaser, another good with champion and elemental. You can champion the Flamekin Harbinger usually, and then when this guy gets removed, you get again search for the Harbinger's ability coming into play. Bloodpyre Elemental is great because when he's in play you can sack him for 4 damage and then reanimate him with Horde and then sack him again if you have an opponent with a 8 toughness creature and you need to get rid of it. Fester Creep, just small board wipe for tokens. Sprite Bellows, very much like the other card, you can have it deal 6 damage when it goes away. Ashling, this guy really gets through because of course then they have to choose a creature to destroy, but Nevermaker, just returning a non-land permanent to its owner's library. Most of the time I use that on planeswalkers, but other times there's stuff you need to get rid of. This guy's really good when you have some mana untapped at the end of turn. You can use it to pick off a few smaller creatures or just hit the players directly. Activate his ability multiple times. And Taurean Elemental is usually assured 7 damage, as you can assign its damage to the player instead of the blocking creature. War Elemental has the potential to get really big, however he is difficult to play with his 3 red. A lot of times I haven't been able to drop this guy early on. Thornling, just a very versatile creature, great with his indestructible ability. Now on to the spells. What I did here is went for pure versatility. I wanted to be able to have this deck be able to handle anything that an opponent can throw at it. So I went with all of the old school and new charms as well. So I've got the Croesus Charm, Duragaz, Dromars, Riths, and Trevas. Then a couple of split cards from the Ravnica block. Hide and Seek is great, especially if you know that the particular opponent's deck hinges around one card. You can seek it and get rid of it. Or if they've got a pain artifact or enchantment, you can hide it and put it on the bottom of their library. Crime and Punishment. Most of the time I use the punishment side of this card because you can, in big multiplayer games, there's several items with the same converted mana cost, but sometimes if an opponent has an Eldrazi or some other big creature, I like to pull that out with Crime. Pernicious Deed, this card is just pure evil. That's why it's like a $12 to $15 card, but I've used this many times to wipe the board. Decimate's really good in big multiplayer games. If you don't have a lot of opponents, if you're playing 1 or 2 opponents, this might not be good because you have to have valid targets for each one of it to be able to resolve. Hull Breach, just artifact and enchantment hate. Unfulfilled Desires, because I can reanimate my elementals and my other cards, which I'll get to here in a moment. It allows me to pay 1 life and get additional cards into my hand. Torn of Souls, this is just another versatility card. I can bring one of my creatures back for, just about as much mana as it would cost for the reanimate ability of Horde of Notions, but I can also pump up the creatures. Wargate, again, a good multicolor versatility card. Allows you to grab any permanent card with however much mana you want to pay. Conflux, again, I think one of the best multicolor cards there are in the game. Violent Ultimatum, just great for late game. It's sometimes difficult to hit this 3 red too with this mana base, but most of the time I don't really need to play this until late game anyway. And then you get to all of the Alara block charms. Naya, Esper, Grixis, Jund, and Bant. And then probably the best card in the deck is Bound. I've rarely used the Determined side, but Bound allows you to sack a creature and return X cards from your graveyard to your hand, where X is the color of the creature, and then you get to sacrifice your general and return 5 other cards. So it's really good when you have a bunch of destroy cards in your graveyard that you want to recycle, like Pernicious Deeds.
Thanks for watching CMDR Decks. Please subscribe and favorite.